Carl Jung explains, "You'll never avoid discipline again after this." Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, Jim Rohn once said. And Carl Jung would remind us that true growth comes when we integrate discipline into the very fabric of our lives. Imagine how different your days could feel if discipline stopped being a burden and became a path to freedom, clarity, and fulfillment. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we'll explore why you'll never avoid discipline again once you truly understand its deeper meaning. As you listen, ask yourself, how has discipline shaped your journey so far? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your reflections, and they might inspire someone else on their path too. 1. Lack of discipline is not laziness, it's fragmentation. There is a kind of ache that words rarely capture, the ache of watching yourself break the same promise to yourself over and over again. Not because you're lazy, but because a deeper part of you has gone missing. Carl Jung teaches that what we call lack of discipline is often not a weakness, it's exile, a disconnection from a sacred part of the self that once held vision, courage, and clarity. Discipline, in this light, isn't about control or force. It's about reuniting with the fragments of the soul that we've pushed away. When you find yourself staring into the mirror and feeling a quiet bitterness, not hatred, but distrust, it's not because you're incapable. It's because your spirit is fractured. You say you'll begin. You believe it for a moment. But when the next day comes, the man or woman who made that vow feels like a ghost. What remains is the same tired routine, the same broken rhythm, the same internal silence where once there was fire. This cycle is not laziness, it's avoidance. You're not avoiding tasks, you're avoiding becoming. You're sidestepping the confrontation with your future self, the version of you who demands responsibility, accountability, transformation. And beneath that avoidance lies pain, not the pain of failure, but the pain of fragmentation. Jung would say that your undisciplined moments are not moral failures. They are spiritual signals, cries from the unconscious that a part of you has been left behind, the part that once dared to dream, to imagine, to commit, to create. The problem is not that you can't keep promises. The problem is that the self making the promise and the self waking up the next day are not aligned. One speaks with hope, the other acts with fatigue. And in between them is a soul split by expectation, shame, and the buried weight of the past. This is where spiritual awakening truly begins, not with mystical experiences or sudden enlightenment, but with the humble realization that discipline is not about force, it's about integration. It's about remembering the forgotten self, embracing the vulnerable self, and inviting all parts of you back to the center. You don't need more punishment. You need more reunion. You need to forgive yourself, not for doing something wrong, but for abandoning the part of you that tried to do something right. The discipline you crave is not external. It's a rhythm of inner wholeness. Every time you show up for yourself, even in small, quiet ways, you are repairing the sacred thread that connects who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming. The man who broke the vow is not your enemy. He is your teacher. He shows you where healing is needed. He shows you where energy is blocked. He shows you where the inner child still waits to be chosen. So instead of asking why you're undisciplined, ask, what part of me feels abandoned? What version of me needs to be seen, heard, included, loved? In Jungian terms, this is the process of individuation, the journey toward wholeness through shadow, fragmentation, and eventual integration. You do not lack discipline because you are broken. You lack discipline because your soul has not yet come home. And when you finally stop shaming yourself and start listening to the deeper cries beneath the avoidance, you will uncover the truth. You are not lazy. You are lost in transition. You are between selves. And the way out is not through more control, but through spiritual presence, through becoming a sanctuary for your own becoming. Discipline, then, is not a battle. It is a return. 2. Discipline is identity, not effort. Discipline isn't something you force, it's something you remember. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom reveals that true discipline is not about struggle or self-denial, but about returning to your original state of alignment. You don't become disciplined by punishing yourself into perfection. You reconnect with the part of you that already knows how to move with intention and purpose. When you constantly break promises to yourself, when you say tomorrow, knowing it never comes, it's not because you're lazy or weak. It's because you're spiritually disconnected. The pain you feel isn't failure. It's a longing to return to who you truly are. Shame doesn't arise from doing nothing. It arises when your soul knows you were meant for more. And that shame, that tension, is not there to destroy you. It's there to wake you up. Jung believed that people avoid becoming themselves not because they fear the work, but because they've forgotten the power already within them. That's why discipline, when rooted in spirituality, becomes effortless. It's not about grinding harder. It's about falling into rhythm with your soul's natural cadence. When you do that, habits no longer feel like cages. They feel like devotion. You don't need to force yourself to change. You need to remember who you are underneath the noise. The man or woman you're trying to become is not far away. They're already within you, waiting for the alignment to begin. Spiritual development is the process of shedding everything that was never you, so the disciplined, grounded, powerful version of yourself can rise. The longer you operate from disconnection, the more discipline feels like punishment. But the moment you reclaim your identity, when your values, actions, and inner truth align, discipline becomes peace. The goal isn't to control yourself through fear. It's to honor yourself through truth. You don't need more pressure. You need more presence. Look at your routines, not as checklists of achievement, but as rituals of remembrance. This is how spiritual awakening transforms discipline from a burden into a sacred act. It is not about self-denial. It is about self-devotion. You're not trying to fix a broken version of yourself. You're learning how to listen to the part of you that never left, the part that never gave up, the part that's still waiting for you to come back. Discipline isn't effort, it's identity. And when you walk in your truth, you won't have to force anything ever again. Have you ever realized that discipline isn't about effort, but about identity? If this message resonates with you, comment below. I choose to embody discipline. And if you're just beginning this journey, comment, I will show up for myself so we can grow together, step by step. 3. You're not starting from zero. You're facing your shadow. You're not beginning at zero. You're facing the very parts of yourself that were left behind. Every time you try to change, you're not just building a new habit. You're standing in front of the echoes of promises you once made and broke. It's not because you didn't care. It's because you were carrying the shame of having tried before and been met with silence, punishment, or ridicule. Carl Jung reminds us that the shadow isn't evil, it's simply unknown. And in that unknown lies the version of you that once showed enthusiasm, only to be shut down. You were taught that effort was dangerous, that wanting more made you a problem, that showing up boldly could lead to rejection. So now, when you try to become disciplined, your nervous system responds with fear, not failure. That fear isn't weakness, it's protection. The lazy self you've been taught to shame is not your enemy. He's a protector, built from years of intelligent adaptation to pain. He remembers what it felt like to try and be ignored, to hope and be mocked. He's not sabotaging you. He's trying to keep you from being hurt again. And this is where spiritual wisdom begins. Not by pushing yourself harder, but by asking why part of you feels so unsafe with structure. Jung's psychology teaches us that change doesn't happen through control. It happens through integration. The shadow isn't something to fight. It's something to understand. And when you begin to see that your avoidance is not dysfunction, but a survival strategy, you stop declaring war on yourself and start listening. You realize you're not unmotivated, you're fragmented. And what looks like inconsistency is really a call to wholeness. The truth is, discipline is not just a strategy. It's an act of remembrance. It's you reteaching your body and spirit that it is safe to follow through, that you won't abandon yourself again, that you won't punish yourself for falling short, that every small commitment kept is a whisper to the wounded parts within you. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's not about achieving perfection. It's about slowly restoring the trust that was broken, sometimes decades ago. And that begins by naming the resistance not as failure, but as a messenger. When Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate," he meant exactly this. The patterns that feel like sabotage are often sacred signals from within, asking you to come home. So instead of forcing yourself into a new routine, pause. Ask, what part of me still feels unsafe to be seen? What part of me still believes that consistency means punishment? Because once you see the intelligence in your delay, you can offer it compassion instead of shame. And that, right there, is when real change begins, not as performance, but as reunion. If this message helped you face your own shadow with clarity, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's walk this path of spiritual awakening together. 4. The shadow contains your strength. According to Carl Jung, the shadow isn't just a hiding place for shame or suppressed emotions. It's the vault where your forgotten power sleeps. Hidden beneath the surface of your consciousness are the parts of you the world told you to repress. Your discipline, your sacred ambition, your inner king. These are not flaws to fix, but archetypes to reclaim. The sovereign version of you, the disciplined builder, the fearless warrior, the grounded father was never destroyed. He was suppressed, judged, exiled, and in spiritual awakening, True healing begins not by chasing light, but by reintegrating the gold buried in your shadow. Your procrastination isn't laziness. It's betrayal of your higher self, of the promises your soul made before the world told you to shrink. You say you'll begin. You feel inspired for a moment, and then you abandon yourself again. Not because you want to, but because the world has convinced you to distrust your own strength. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It's the expression of inner order. Without discipline, your spirituality becomes noise. Without structure, your ambition dissolves into fantasy. Jung understood this deeply. Until you face the shadow, the unconscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate. But fate is not what's stopping you. Avoidance is. The longer you run from the mirror, the more disconnected you become from your true self. Spirituality is not passivity. It's confrontation with your sleeping king. And he is not here to destroy. He is here to build, to restore, to reclaim. When you feel resistance to structure, to habit, to waking up early, it's not because those things are wrong. It's because you have forgotten that structure is sacred. In a world full of distractions, devotion is rebellion. In a culture of comfort, consistency is power. Every time you keep your promise to yourself, you send a signal to your soul that says, "I'm coming home." The path is not easy, but it is holy. The daily rituals, the repetition, the showing up when it's boring, are not meaningless. They are the ancient language of the sovereign self. Spiritual awakening is not found in escape, but in mastery. And mastery requires discipline, not the kind born from shame, but the kind rooted in purpose. The warrior within you is not gone. He is watching, waiting, longing to be called forward. Your ambition is not ego. It is the map your spirit wrote before your first breath. And your discipline is the compass that brings you back to it. Reclaim it, not to impress the world, but to honor the man or woman you were born to be. The shadow is not your curse, it's your contract. And when you fulfill it, you don't just rise, you reign. 5. You must mourn the old version of you. Transformation is never just about becoming something new. It's about releasing the version of yourself that once felt necessary for your survival. That old self, the one who avoided change, delayed decisions, stayed quiet, played small, wasn't a failure. He was a guardian. He showed up when the world felt unsafe and taught you how to hide, how to wait, how to endure. But now, he's exhausted. His tools no longer build, they block. His silence no longer protects, it stifles. And if you want to step into your true power, you have to grieve him. Carl Jung reminds us that nothing changes until it becomes conscious. And what's unconscious in so many of us is this deep loyalty to an identity we've outgrown. Spirituality calls us not just to awaken, but to release. And in that release, we mourn not with shame, but with reverence. You cannot create while clinging to the part of you that only knows how to cope. You cannot lead while dragging along the version of yourself that was too afraid to be seen. Mourning is not weakness. It is the bridge between who you were and who you're meant to become. Discipline, then, is not just routine, it's resurrection. It's choosing to move even when your past self whispers that it's safer to stay still. It's building momentum when the echo of your former fear tries to freeze you. In spiritual development, energy must be reclaimed from the past to fuel your future. Every time you hesitate, it's often the old self begging to be remembered. But honoring him doesn't mean keeping him. It means saying, "Thank you for what you've done, but I don't need you anymore." This is the sacred threshold where real change begins, not with willpower alone, but with spiritual clarity. You begin to act, not because you hate who you were, but because you finally love who you're becoming. The shame fades because it no longer serves a purpose. The discipline no longer feels like force. It feels like devotion. You stop recycling the same emotional survival loops and instead invest in growth, in intention, in presence. That's what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of integration, not denying the past self, but absorbing its lessons without letting it control the narrative. When you stop identifying with the one who only survived, you open space for the one who is here to build, to speak, to lead, and to embody purpose with clarity and direction. The most powerful shift in your spiritual awakening is realizing that you're not stuck. You're still holding on. And once you let go, once you mourn with compassion instead of resistance, everything you've been waiting to create begins to flow, not because the conditions have changed, but because you finally have. Do you feel the old you slipping away? If you're ready to honor your growth and embrace who you're becoming, declare it in the comments. I release the old me. I rise in spiritual wisdom. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your journey below. 6. Discipline is a sacred ritual, not a grind. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the sacred rhythm of returning to your true self. When you stop seeing it as force and start recognizing it as ritual, everything changes. You're not grinding. You're remembering. Carl Jung taught that unless we bring our unconscious into the light, it will rule our lives without us even knowing. Discipline is how we bring it to light. It's how we take back authorship of our story. Every small act of consistency, a morning routine, an evening reflection, a conscious breath in chaos, is a declaration of identity. It quietly says, "This is who I am." The power isn't in the intensity, it's in the repetition. You don't have to do it all at once. You just have to do it again and again. That's where the transformation lives. Most people think discipline is about control, but it's actually about freedom. You don't discipline yourself because you hate who you are. You do it because you remember who you're becoming. You choose silence instead of reaction. You choose presence instead of distraction. You choose the long game. And those choices, though small, build the architecture of a free and powerful mind. This is not about ego. It's about spiritual intelligence, knowing how to align with your highest self again and again, even when no one is watching. Jung understood that chaos isn't always loud. It often lives quietly in the soul that lacks rhythm. That's why discipline matters. It gives your energy direction. It gives your heart a home. You are not weak for struggling with consistency. You are human. And your healing begins the moment you stop shaming yourself and start honoring the sacred invitation of structure. Your soul craves rhythm. Your body thrives on trust. And trust is built through promises kept. Discipline, in its highest form, is love in action. It is the soul remembering its path home. You are not meant to feel imprisoned by your practices. You are meant to feel empowered by them. Your rituals are the reminders that you are not lost. You are being sculpted. You are being softened. You are being returned to yourself, one choice at a time. 7. You are always disciplined. The question is, to what? You are always disciplined. The real question is, to what? Some are disciplined to distraction, endlessly checking notifications before their own needs. Others are disciplined to self-doubt, rehearsing every failure in their mind while ignoring every quiet victory of growth. Still others are disciplined to fear, avoiding the unknown instead of embracing the challenge of becoming. But few are truly disciplined to evolution, to spiritual awakening, to the unfolding of their highest potential. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Discipline is not simply about waking up early or sticking to routines. It is a deep spiritual relationship with time. Every moment you procrastinate sends a message to the universe: I don't honor this moment. And time, like an intelligent mirror, responds accordingly. You begin to lose synchronicities, momentum, even fragments of your identity, not because you're incapable, but because your energy is scattered. Real discipline is sacred. It's a quiet commitment to becoming someone your future self would trust. It's the decision to keep promises to yourself, even when no one is watching. You are not undisciplined. You are simply loyal to things that drain your spirit. What if your devotion to avoidance was redirected to transformation? What if you gave the same consistency to healing, to learning, to showing up for your purpose as you give to delay? In spiritual terms, this is the path of awakening where discipline becomes devotion and time becomes temple. The spiritual wisdom hidden in plain sight is this: your life will be shaped by what you repeatedly return to. If you return to distraction, you fragment. If you return to presence, you integrate. Discipline is not punishment. It is alignment. It is the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. When you stop waiting for motivation and begin acting out of integrity, something shifts. You stop seeking results and start honoring rhythm. The practice becomes the point. And in that practice, you reclaim your power. Every decision becomes a sacred vote for your future self. You no longer negotiate with your lesser patterns. You rise. You remember that time is not just passing, it's listening. And it will echo back whatever you consistently invest in. So ask yourself, not am I disciplined, but where is my discipline leading me? That answer reveals everything. 8. Your inner king is waiting. Discipline is not a burden. It is the invisible crown of your inner king, the sacred structure that holds your sovereignty in place. When you stop performing for approval and start honoring your own inner code, you awaken a deeper authority that has always lived inside you. This is not about control for the sake of control. It's about reclaiming the throne of your own life. Carl Jung taught that the mature self emerges when inner chaos is replaced with order, when fragmented desires give way to integrated purpose. And discipline is what allows that purpose to take form. Without it, your potential remains scattered, diffused in distractions and emotional swings. But with it, you walk with a quiet strength that doesn't need external validation. You move not because someone told you to, but because your soul expects it of you. In the realm of spirituality, we often chase the ecstatic visions, signs, synchronicities, while overlooking the foundation that makes all of it sustainable: daily structure. True spiritual development is not just about accessing higher realms. but building a life that honors what you've seen. A spiritually awakened person is not just someone who feels deeply, but someone who can show up day after day for what matters. That's what separates wishful thinking from embodied wisdom. Discipline is the ritual of remembrance. It tells the universe that you are ready not just to receive blessings, but to protect and multiply them. It is the bridge between potential and power. Without it, you forget who you are. With it, you remember, consistently, deliberately, silently. And that silence is everything. You stop needing loud motivation because your energy becomes ordered. You stop making promises you can't keep because you've grown tired of betraying yourself. Instead, you become the kind of person who moves with rhythm, who wakes up with clarity, who is no longer ruled by fleeting moods, but governed by meaningful intention. That's what the king archetype represents. Not dominance, but divine self-governance. Not performance, but presence. In a world obsessed with shortcuts and hacks, the one who commits to disciplined living becomes rare and powerful. They become stable in a world that is volatile, focused in a world that is distracted, grounded in a world that is spinning. So the next time you feel resistance toward routine, remember that discipline is not taking anything from you. It's giving you back to yourself. It's the path through which your intelligence becomes impact, through which your vision becomes legacy. Your inner king does not need applause to keep going. He only needs you to stop abandoning the structures that make you whole. There is no spiritual awakening without responsibility, no sovereignty without sacrifice, no throne without devotion. Your life becomes beautiful, not because it's easy, but because it's intentional. And discipline is how you honor that intention with every breath, every step, every sacred choice. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Your inner king is watching. Type in the comments, "I deserve to live a financially prosperous life." 9. Discipline is how you heal, not punish. Discipline is not punishment. It's the purest form of self-respect. It is how you heal what chaos once broke, how you protect what you've rebuilt, and how you return to yourself after years of living disconnected. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, could not happen without discipline, because discipline forces you to confront every part of yourself: the strong, the wounded, the forgotten, and the exiled. This isn't about hating who you've been. It's about remembering who you truly are underneath the noise, the coping, and the avoidance. Your lack of discipline isn't proof that you're weak. It's evidence that a part of you has been waiting for reconnection. That undisciplined self isn't lazy. It's unheard, unseen, and longing to be led. Discipline is the bridge that reunites you with your purpose, your integrity, and your spiritual intelligence. Real strength doesn't scream. It shows up daily, silently, faithfully. You don't need hype. You need truth, structure, and self-honor. You don't need another dopamine hit or quick win. You need sacred repetition. The world tells you to chase passion, but Carl Jung knew the soul needs something deeper: alignment. And alignment is built through small, consistent choices that no one applauds. True spiritual wisdom is when you do what is right, not what is easy. When you keep the promise you made to yourself, even when the motivation fades. There is a sacred kind of power in walking away from distractions, not because you're being restricted, but because you're being refined. Every time you honor your word, you are rewiring your nervous system, cleansing your energy field, and reestablishing trust with your inner being. Discipline is the inner architect of transformation. It reshapes your identity not by force, but through presence. Each decision to delay gratification, to embrace stillness, or to resist temptation is not suppression, it is elevation. It's how you show your shadow that it doesn't need to be feared or buried. It can be integrated, guided, and eventually transformed. The ego craves comfort, but the soul craves clarity, and discipline is the compass that leads you there. When you begin to choose what feeds your future over what feeds your feelings, you become spiritually mature. You are no longer swayed by emotions alone. You are led by vision, by wisdom, by sacred intention. There comes a moment when the most spiritual thing you can do is follow through. When discipline becomes your prayer, your meditation, your offering, not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you are done betraying yourself. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Discipline makes sure that the version of you with dreams and the version of you with habits are finally the same person. And that is how healing becomes your lifestyle. That is how you escape the loop, not by force, but by alignment. Not through shame, but through remembrance. Not with ego, but with intelligence. Not through fear, but with spiritual wisdom. 10. Now is the initiation. You don't need to be ready. You need to begin. Readiness is often just fear in disguise, another delay tactic dressed as preparation. The truth is, life doesn't wait for your perfection. It responds to your initiation. The moment you stop striving to become someone and start acting as though you already are that version, something remarkable happens. Your identity and your life begin to align. When you choose to embody the discipline of your future self now, not out of force, but from deep self-respect, you begin to return home to the person you were always meant to be. This is not about pretending, it's about remembering. As Carl Jung taught, we meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. The version of you that has been exiled by doubt, laziness, and excuses is not gone. It's waiting for your signal to return. And the signal is action. Bold, imperfect, aligned action. Discipline, in this light, is no longer about punishment or sacrifice. It becomes devotion. It becomes the structure that holds your truth. You show up because that's who you are, not because you're forcing yourself to become someone else. You don't meditate because you're trying to be spiritual. You meditate because you are spiritual. You don't eat well, move your body, or keep promises to prove anything you do, because the awakened version of you simply wouldn't live any other way. In spiritual awakening, discipline is not a cage, it is the key. It frees you from the cycle of self-abandonment. Every time you do what you said you would do, you reinforce the message, I am someone I can trust. And trust is the soil where all transformation grows. This is not motivation, this is identity. The man who used to break his word dies here. The woman who used to wait until Monday begins today. The soul who once hesitated now knows that hesitation is the enemy of embodiment. And as your actions begin to match your highest self-image, the universe shifts. not because the world changes, but because you do. You are no longer looking for external permission to act. You are no longer asking for proof that you're ready. You are living from the inside out. And this is where spirituality meets strength, when your values are not just ideas, but daily rituals. When your energy is not scattered, but sacred. When your inner world is not chaotic, but coherent. This is how you honor your path. This is how you return to yourself. And in that return, discipline will no longer feel like effort. It will feel like home. And if today's message stirred something within you, hold on to it. Discipline isn't just about willpower. It's about coming home to your true self. Carl Jung showed us that when we avoid discipline, we're not lazy, we're lost. But now, you've seen the path back to yourself. If this video brought you clarity or sparked a deeper understanding of your journey, help us grow this space of spiritual wisdom. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the Spiritual Wisdom channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming explorations into the soul. Do nothing and see how the universe puts everything in order. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows in size." In a world that constantly tells us to hustle, achieve, and push harder, it feels almost radical to consider that true transformation begins in stillness. But what if the very act of doing nothing is the secret key to allowing the universe to align everything for you? Today, on Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore why surrender is not weakness, but the highest form of intelligence and spiritual wisdom. As you listen, I want you to reflect. Have you ever noticed how life seems to flow when you finally stop forcing outcomes? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences of letting go and watching things fall into place. 1. Effort isn't always the answer. Many people spend their lives chasing transformation through affirmations, rituals, and visualizations, yet they still wake up each day feeling stuck, questioning why nothing seems to change. They work harder, push further, and force themselves into endless cycles of effort, believing that progress only comes through action. But Carl Jung, a master of psychology and spirituality, revealed that what you resist not only persists, but intensifies, and that true transformation begins not with more effort, but with surrender. This paradox is uncomfortable because society has conditioned us to think that slowing down means failure. Yet in the realm of spiritual awakening, surrender is not giving up, but allowing a deeper wisdom to move through you. A wisdom that arranges life in ways the rational mind cannot comprehend. When you try too hard to control the outcome, you build walls of resistance around yourself. The more you force change, the more fragmented you feel inside. Think about trying to fall asleep. The harder you push, the more restless you become. It is only when you relax, when you stop clinging, that sleep naturally comes. Transformation works in the same way. By surrendering, you release the tight grip of the ego and step into alignment with something larger. This is not passivity, it is active trust. You are no longer fighting against the current of life, but flowing with it, letting the universe lead you into experiences you could not have planned for yourself. Modern life glorifies effort. We are told that working longer hours guarantees success, that hustling harder brings fulfillment, that constant busyness is a badge of honor. But look closely, and you will see countless people exhausted, drained, and unfulfilled, despite all their striving. They climb ladders only to find them leaning against the wrong walls. Spiritual wisdom shows us that surrender is not the absence of effort, but the redirection of energy. Instead of wasting it on fear, control, and resistance, you place it into trust, faith, and alignment. This is why so many breakthroughs happen, not when you are pushing, but when you finally release, when you stop calling, stop obsessing, stop chasing. Suddenly, the call comes. The opportunity arrives. The relationship shifts. It is not magic in the shallow sense. It is the universe responding to your openness. Nature itself teaches this truth. A flower does not struggle to bloom. It unfolds naturally under the rhythm of the sun and the cycle of the seasons. The ocean does not force its tides. It surrenders to the pull of the moon. Even your own body heals best when you stop interfering and allow rest. In the same way, your spirit transforms most powerfully when you give it space instead of suffocating it with relentless doing. Carl Jung understood that the psyche contains its own inner wisdom, a self-regulating force that seeks balance and wholeness if only we stop blocking it. Spiritual awakening is not about accumulating more practices or proving your worth through action, but about remembering that you are already part of a vast intelligence, one that holds galaxies in place and quietly arranges the details of your life. In relationships, careers, and personal growth, this principle is alive. You may have noticed how desperation often drives people away, while calm presence draws them in. Or how the job offer finally comes when you are no longer consumed with anxiety over it. This is not coincidence. It is the subtle law of surrender at work. When you release resistance, you create space for grace to enter. When you stop controlling, you allow life to reveal possibilities beyond your imagination. Doing nothing in this sense is not laziness, but the highest form of wisdom. It is the art of trusting the invisible order that is always present, the unseen harmony that aligns everything when you stop interfering. This is the path of spiritual awakening, learning to let go, to trust, and to watch as the universe places each piece exactly where it belongs. Are you ready to let go and trust the deeper order of life? If so, comment below, "I surrender to the flow," to show your commitment to this spiritual awakening. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you never miss a moment of clarity. 2. Jung's truth: surrender over striving. Carl Jung once reminded us that what you resist persists. And if you reflect on those words carefully, you will see how much truth they carry for your own life. Every time you push too hard, force outcomes, or cling desperately to control, you are not actually moving forward. You are creating more resistance, more fragmentation inside yourself, and more struggle than peace. Doing nothing in the spiritual sense does not mean giving up on your dreams or becoming passive. It means practicing intentional stillness, stepping back from the restless effort that drains your soul, and allowing life to unfold with a wisdom far greater than your conscious mind can orchestrate. It is in this sacred stillness that your unconscious begins to rise to the surface, whispering truths you had buried, revealing hidden beliefs that have quietly shaped your choices, and pointing you toward a deeper alignment. When you stop fighting, when you allow space, when you surrender, you suddenly realize that the universe has always been arranging things on your behalf, guiding you in subtle ways you were too busy to notice. Spirituality and spiritual development are not about endless striving, but about learning to listen, to trust, and to flow with the intelligence that animates everything around you. Think of how rivers move. They do not force their path through the earth in a single moment. They simply flow with patience, and over time, they carve valleys, shape landscapes, and nourish life. Your life carries the same current, but too often you block it with your resistance, your fears, and your attachment to control. Jung's teaching on surrender is not about weakness. It is about the greatest strength you can develop, the strength to trust. In moments of stillness, you discover that what you are chasing is often not what your soul truly desires, but what your fears convince you to pursue. The fear of not being enough, the fear of being left behind, the fear of losing what you have. All of these fears push you to resist the natural flow. And in resisting, you keep yourself trapped in struggle. Yet when you release, when you say to yourself, "I trust life more than I fear it," an invisible shift occurs. Suddenly, the weight you have carried begins to dissolve. Clarity emerges where confusion once reigned, and opportunities flow toward you with an ease you never thought possible. In truth, spirituality teaches that the most profound transformations often come not when we are striving endlessly, but when we finally create the stillness to let them arrive. This is why doing nothing can be the most powerful action you take. It is not laziness, but presence. It is not passivity, but faith. It is a sacred invitation for life itself to reveal its order without your interference. If you look back, you may notice that many of the best things that have happened to you, chance encounters, unexpected breakthroughs, and sudden clarity arrived not through forcing, but through surrender. They came when you released control, when you stopped fighting, when you opened your heart to something larger than your own plans. This is the secret Jung wanted us to understand. Striving is not the path to wholeness, surrender is. And so, in your own journey of spiritual development, ask yourself with honesty, where are you still forcing, and where can you begin to let go? Can you trust that the timing of your life is not a mistake, that the universe is wiser than your fears, and that the silence you run from may in fact hold the answers you need? If you can practice this surrender, even for a few moments each day, you will see that doing nothing is not empty. It is full. It is full of insight, of peace, of guidance, and of a quiet power that allows everything to fall into place exactly as it should. If you're ready to stop forcing and start flowing, comment below, "I am in the flow of abundance." Let the universe take the lead. 3. Energy speaks louder than words. You say you want abundance, yet you carry the energy of scarcity. You speak of love, yet deep inside you fear rejection. The universe doesn't follow your words, it follows your vibration. It listens not to what you say, but to what you feel, to what you believe when no one is watching. That is why, no matter how many affirmations you chant, if the core of your being whispers, "I'm not enough," the universe will mirror that exact frequency. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Your life is not responding to your surface voice, it's responding to your shadow. True spiritual wisdom begins the moment you stop performing for the universe and start being honest with yourself. Doing nothing doesn't mean apathy. It means presence. It means no longer trying to micromanage what is divinely orchestrated. It means stepping back, observing the energy within, and daring to ask, what part of me still believes I'm not already whole? The intelligence of the universe is not manipulated by your hustle. It is activated by your alignment. When your energy is at war with your desire, you create resistance. But when your energy rests in truth, even silence becomes a magnet. This is not about passive waiting. It is about intelligent surrender. A kind of spiritual awakening where you stop fighting your own reflection and start becoming the version of you that is already free. You don't need to chase what's meant for you. You need to clear the noise that keeps you from receiving it. Spiritual alignment is not loud. It's quiet. It's not forceful. It's still. It's the kind of quiet confidence that knows, if I align my energy, I don't have to beg for what is mine. And the more you try to force, the more it fractures. Because what you resist persists. The moment you stop obsessing over the how, you create space for the now. That's when the universe finally has room to move. That's when everything starts to fall into place, not because you pushed harder, but because you let go smarter. In that letting go, you finally tune your frequency to the reality that already exists for you. Like a radio station always broadcasting, abundance, love, peace, they've always been there. You just needed to adjust your inner dial. That's the intelligence the universe responds to. Not your perfection, but your presence. Not your performance, but your energy. And the most powerful energy of all is truth. The kind that doesn't need to prove, fix, or grasp, only to trust, to feel, and to be. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss insights like this. Energy speaks louder than words type in the comments. I deserve to live a financially prosperous life. If you're ready to let your presence do the talking and attract abundance effortlessly. 4. Doing nothing as radical trust. Stillness is not the absence of progress, but the presence of deep alignment with a higher order. In a culture obsessed with doing, fixing, and proving, the radical act is to do nothing not out of laziness, but out of spiritual intelligence. Carl Jung's teaching on individuation reminds us that true transformation does not arise from the pursuit of perfection, but from the integration of all parts of the self. And that integration begins not in noise, but in silence. When you stop trying to fix yourself as if you're broken, you begin to witness your own wholeness. When you stop pleading with the universe to rearrange your life, you begin to realize that the universe was never disordered to begin with. It was your resistance that created the illusion of chaos. Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows." The very effort to control, correct, and manage every detail becomes the block. And so, doing nothing becomes the most courageous choice. It means you are no longer operating from fear, but from trust. You are no longer forcing life into your shape, but letting life shape you. This stillness is not stagnation. It is fertile. It is sacred. It is the quiet soil where the seed of your deeper self is finally allowed to root. In the silence, you are no longer reacting. You are receiving. You are no longer calculating your next move. You are becoming receptive to guidance. And it's in that deep inner quiet that true answers come. This is the paradox of spiritual awakening. The more you chase healing, clarity, or manifestation, the more you affirm you don't have it. But when you release the chase, you return to a state of wholeness where all things begin to align. Stillness is not failure. It's a form of listening. It's a space where your ego steps back and your soul takes the lead. And when your soul leads, life responds not in the loud ways you're used to, but in whispers, synchronicities, and the quiet unfolding of things falling into place without your interference. Modern life will tell you that you're wasting time if you're not constantly doing, producing, or planning. But real power moves in silence. Real healing doesn't scream. It settles into your bones when you're not looking. When you let go of the compulsive need to act, you start to see how everything is already working on your behalf. This is not about passivity. It's about energetic clarity. It's about choosing alignment over effort. When you truly embody the energy of trust, the universe mirrors it back. You'll find that doors open without knocking, people appear without searching, and situations resolve without controlling. Stillness becomes your superpower. Doing nothing becomes your way of saying, I trust that I am enough. I trust that I am guided. I trust that everything is unfolding as it should. And that trust, that deep surrender, becomes the most intelligent thing you can ever do. Do you believe in the power of radical trust? If you do, boldly declare it in the comments. I trust the universe to put everything in order. 5. The creative void. When you stop forcing, stop trying to manipulate outcomes, and instead surrender into the unknown, you enter what Carl Jung described as the creative void, a mysterious in-between space where the old version of yourself begins to dissolve, but the new one hasn't fully formed. It's a place that feels eerily quiet, even painfully still, and yet something deeper than your mind is being restructured. On the outside, it may appear that nothing is happening, but beneath the silence, your nervous system is resetting, your energy is rebalancing, and your soul is quietly aligning with the frequency of your next chapter. This is the essence of spiritual development. You are not climbing a visible staircase of progress. You are being transformed in ways your intellect cannot yet comprehend. In this space, effort does not equal growth, presence does. Stillness becomes your teacher, and surrender becomes your path. It's uncomfortable because you've been conditioned to believe that only action produces change, that doing more will bring you closer to healing, success, clarity. But in the spiritual realm, the opposite is often true. What you resist not only persists, Jung reminds us, but grows in size. The harder you push against the void, the longer you delay the miracles that require your stillness to arrive. The truth is, this sacred pause is not passive. It is alive. It is intelligent. It is divine choreography working beyond your conscious control. The universe is not punishing you with stillness. It is preparing you. It is not withholding answers. It is rearranging the entire landscape of your being so you can receive what truly belongs to your soul, not your ego. And while your logical mind may crave certainty, your spirit is learning to trust without proof, to listen without noise, to expand without movement. This is the real inner work that leads to profound spiritual awakening. What most people call stagnation is actually gestation. Just like a seed underground shows no signs of growth until it's ready to burst through the surface, your transformation is unfolding invisibly until the divine timing is right. The creative void is the womb of all becoming. It is the fertile silence where destiny writes itself without your interference. This is the moment when doing nothing becomes the most powerful action. You are not being lazy. You are becoming magnetic. You are not being still. You are being rewired. And you are not falling behind. You are being positioned. Every quiet breath you take in this space is healing your past, resetting your nervous system, and expanding your energetic field to hold more truth, more wisdom, more clarity. This is what spirituality demands, not more doing, but deeper being. Not performance, but presence. Not control, but trust. And if you can stay in the void without running back to your old patterns, without rushing to fill the silence, without needing to be seen or validated, then the universe will show you what happens when you no longer chase alignment, but allow it to find you. Because sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do for your soul's evolution is to stop everything and just let yourself be rearranged in silence. 6. Wholeness is remembered, not earned. Healing, love, and clarity are not distant treasures to be earned through effort, but sacred elements already embedded in your being. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." And in those words lies a deep spiritual wisdom, the reminder that you are not broken, not behind, not lost. You are simply remembering. In a world obsessed with fixing, healing, and improving, doing nothing is not failure, it is faith. It is a return to wholeness that was never lost, only forgotten beneath the noise of the world. When you stop trying to force growth, your soul finally has space to rise. The more you chase clarity, the more it eludes you. But the moment you become still, clarity emerges like light through mist. This is the paradox Jung hinted at. Transformation begins not with force, but with surrender. Doing nothing isn't about apathy. It is the quietest form of intelligence. It is a rebellion against the illusion that effort alone controls destiny. Just like muddy water clears when left untouched, your mind, your path, your next chapter become visible when you allow silence to speak louder than fear. Most people are not exhausted because they lack progress. They are exhausted because they are resisting the truth of who they already are. You were not born to chase your worth. You were born to remember it. Beneath every identity the world gives you is a self that doesn't need healing. It only needs to be seen. You do not need to become someone else to be worthy. You need to unlearn who you were told to be. And that unlearning often begins in stillness, in the radical trust that your life is unfolding with purpose, even when your ego can't see it. The ego wants to control, to fix, to do. But the soul whispers, "Be still." It already knows the way. Carl Jung also reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that unconsciousness becomes visible in the quiet, not in the chaos of doing, but in the sacred pause of being. When you do nothing, you are not giving up. You are opening up. Opening to intuition, to divine order, to the spiritual intelligence of the universe that always knew what to do, if only you'd let go. So stop searching for the light outside of you. You are the light. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to stop running Stop fixing, stop forcing, and simply let yourself remember that truth. 7. The ultimate lesson. True alignment begins not through striving or micromanaging life's details, but by allowing space for the universe to do what it does best: respond to the energy you carry in silence. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." This is not just a psychological truth, it is a spiritual law. When you constantly force things to happen, you send out an energy of lack, of fear, of distrust. But when you step back and surrender, not out of weakness, but out of sacred confidence, the universe begins to mirror that shift back to you. This is where real spiritual awakening begins. Not in noise, but in stillness. Not in doing more, but in being more. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply being invited into a deeper intelligence, one that doesn't scream for your attention, but whispers through peace, presence, and patience. Stop trying to fix everything. Stop trying to make people see your worth. Stop trying to control every next step. Because life has a rhythm, and that rhythm cannot be manipulated. It can only be joined through surrender. When you choose stillness over struggle, the people and situations that are no longer in harmony with your soul begin to fall away. And what is meant for you, authentic love, deep purpose, divine opportunity, rises to meet you without force. This is not passive. This is the highest form of spiritual action. Letting go of the illusion that you need to chase, push, or prove. The universe rearranges itself around your clarity. Your silence becomes a statement. Your non-reaction becomes a vibration of power. Your willingness to pause becomes the portal through which miracles enter. Jung's insight reminds us that transformation is not something we chase, it's something we allow. And when we allow it, we stop swimming upstream and begin to float in the divine current that knows the way far better than our anxious minds ever could. As you stand in spiritual wisdom, knowing that your energy speaks louder than words or plans, you start to attract from a place of truth rather than performance. This is how the unconscious becomes conscious, when you stop projecting your fears and instead embody trust. Your stillness is not stagnation. It is sacred recalibration. It is where your worth is remembered, not earned. And from that space, the universe, like water finding its level, puts everything back in order. And so, perhaps the greatest paradox of life is that when you stop forcing outcomes and simply allow yourself to be, the universe quietly rearranges everything on your behalf. The order you've been seeking comes not from endless striving, but from trust, patience, and surrender. If this message resonates with you, let it be a reminder that sometimes doing nothing is the most powerful action of all. Before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos filled with insights that can transform your journey.